This is BBC2. And now at the time at 6.5 minutes past 8 for the News on 2, we join Jan Leeming.
Twelve British servicemen were killed in the battle for Darwin and Goose Green, among them Lieutenant Colonel H. Jones, the Para's commanding officer. 31 were wounded. The Ministry of Defence says that 600 paratroopers were involved in the fighting and they took 1,400 Argentine prisoners. These will be taken away by task force ships. During the fighting, a British scout helicopter was shot down and so were 4 Argentine Pucara aircraft. A Ministry of Defence spokesman said Darwin was taken with little trouble, but there was heavy fighting at Goose Green. It was here that Lieutenant Colonel H. Jones, the commander of the 2nd Paras, was killed leading his men.
As the Paras pressed on to the south, they met an increasingly strong defensive position, which was well dug in and sighted in depth. And at one stage they came under particularly intense fire from 2 heavy machine gun positions. And at this stage the attack could have faltered. Well up with these leading elements, Colonel Jones immediately took command of a small force and led attack against those machine guns. This attack was carried out with the utmost courage and determination, and it was successful, though sadly it resulted in the death of Colonel Jones, a most courageous commander at the head of his men.
We've received a graphic account of how Goose Green and Darwin were retaken by the 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment. Our reporter Robert Fox went in with the Paras. He sent his story as a telex message and Peter Mayne will read it.
For nearly a month, 114 people had been shut up by the Argentines in the settlement community hall. Their houses had been raided, with furniture smashed and excrement on the floor. The Argentines committed acts of petty meanness, smashing and stealing radios and shooting at a shepherd from a helicopter as he tended his sheep. Now the prisoners are being made to clear up the mess they made in the settlement. The surrender came after a 14-hour battle the previous day. The attack began under naval gunfire and shells lit the sky as the Paras moved forward. But in the daylight they were on their own, covered only by guns and mortars. The enemy were falling back slowly through prepared positions. At each post, their own mortars had been arranged perfectly. Robert Fox says, time and again we were pinned down by mortars and fire from anti-aircraft guns. I was with the battalion headquarters, and if we were within 10 feet of death from shrapnel and shell once, we were there 40 times. In mid-afternoon, we were told that the commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel H. Jones, always known as H, had been shot as he led a platoon attack against machine gun nests which had held up the battalion for over half an hour. In the evening, they brought his body down from the hillside. A soldier walking in front, his weapon pointed to the ground. The silhouette of this silent ceremony, the most indelible image of the day. Fox and another journalist were asked to act as civilian witnesses for the surrender. He says there were whoops of joy from one group of Argentine soldiers as they threw their weapons down. They said they were glad to be going home. Senior British officers watching were amazed at the numbers, nearly 3 times the strength of the ground forces they had been led to expect in the area.
Peter Mayne was reading Robert Fox's report of how Goose Green was taken back by the British. And the Ministry of Defence say that the pilot of the Harrier shot down over Goose Green on Thursday is back with the British forces on East Falkland. Squadron leader Bob Iveson, the son of a distinguished World War II bomber pilot, evaded capture by the Argentines and was then picked up by a British helicopter. The Ministry of Defence has just announced that in parallel with the battle at Darwin and Goose Green, British forces yesterday entered Douglas Settlement and Teal Inlet. Both places are reported to be now securely in British hands. There are no reports of fighting in these areas and no military or civilian casualties have been reported. Newsnight is at 11 o'clock tonight and it will have a special report on the Pope's journeys today. And immediately after this news, BBC2 will be going back to David Dimbleby to hear the Pope's address in the Metropolitan Cathedral in Liverpool. From me, good night.
And a look at the weather now. Most places will have a dry and very warm day again tomorrow with a good deal of sunshine. Increasing high cloud will, however, once more turn the sunshine hazy in southern parts, and this may well thicken sufficiently to give some showery rain in places later in the day. Temperatures will reach 24 degrees centigrade, 75 Fahrenheit over a good deal of the country, but eastern and southern coasts will be cooler as well as misty from time to time. There's a change to our published programmes now. In about 20 minutes, Hugh Casson takes us to Castle Drogo in Devon, one of his personal pleasures. But first to Liverpool to follow the progress of the papal visit with our commentator, David Dimbleby.